what is this session? This session is a WeQual Global think tank, and WeQual Global exists to enable companies to support their women leaders, and it exists to enable individual women leaders to thrive within your current environment. WeQual Global does primarily three things. It gives you an external network of women at peer level that crosses all sectors, job functions, and cultures. Two, it addresses the common challenges that you as a woman face within your work environment. Our mission as a company is to help the world's largest companies achieve gender equality at the very top. And by addressing the common challenges that you face is a really key part to achieving that. And the third aspect of WeQual Global is to enable the sharing of best practice. And as part of that, we run these WeQual Global think tanks. And I'm delighted today to have two panelists. And I'm just going to introduce each of them in turn. So first of all, Dr. Ritu Anand, a pleasure, Ritu, for you to join us today. She's the former Chief Leadership and Diversity Officer at Tata Consulting Services, otherwise known as TCS, a company that employs some 620,000 people. There she played a pivotal role in promoting gender diversity and inclusion. With over 20 years of experience in human resources, Dr. Anand has been a leading voice on gender diversity in corporate India. She has championed several initiatives at TCS, including the Women's Leadership Program, which provided mentoring and networking opportunities for women employees. As an accomplished speaker, and we're going to be hearing her speak a bit today, and mentor, Dr. Anand shares her insights and expertise on fostering gender diversity in the workplace, inspiring organizations around the world. So first of all, Ritu, you're very welcome.
Thank you.
Dr. Ranjini Manian is our second panelist today. So Ranjini has spent over 2 decades as an entrepreneur, cultural ambassador, author, and philanthropist, connecting global citizens to India. She's the founder of India's premier relocation and cross-cultural services company, Global Adjustments. Ranjini has served on the Harvard Women's Leadership Board and authored books such as Doing Business in India for Dummies, Upwardly Mobile, Make It in India, and her latest book, Champion Women Truths, a progressive journal. She currently serves as the founder chair of Global Adjustments Foundation, whose mission is to empower women and girls to live out their potential by providing them life leadership coaching. Global Adjustments Foundation has already touched the lives of 500,000 people, both in person and digitally. And their goal is to reduce the workforce gender gap, enabling women to contribute to the GDP of the nation. So I hope you can understand why we've asked both Ritu and Ranjini to join us on today's WeQual Global Think Tank, India's Gender Journey, a Global Lesson. So I'm Mark Bateman. I'm the CEO of WeQual. Delighted, Ritu, Ranjini. First of all, Ritu, can you just give us a little bit more of a flavor about who you are, maybe outside of work?
Today, I'm everything but work, but I'll be happy to tell you who I am. And I'm happy to see Michelle from Singapore and Sandhya from Bangalore joining in, and all the lovely ladies. I wish there were more men in this group, but that's all right. I'm sure they will join in later. All my life, I have always dreamt that I was so smoothly getting into a room full of men, being the single woman, but why a man was not brave enough to enter a room full of women. And so for that, Mark, you deserve a trophy. Having said that, I'm hoping that more men will join in, not as hosts, but as guests to learn the good things that all of us do in the universe, despite our gender. I was born in North India, one of the smaller cities, relatively very small to Mumbai, where I now live. I was an academician, did my right up till PhD in psychology full time. And then TCS happened to me, and then nothing happened to me but TCS for 35 years. And now I am on my third phase where I'm on my own and very inspired by what all of you are doing. And especially Mark, when you are talking about Ranjini, she's done so many more things. I feel nothing in compared to her, but that also tells me there is a lot more to be done. And that is the excitement phase that I am entering myself in.
Thank you, Ritu. Thank you so much. And Ranjini, a little bit about you outside of work.
So for me, the legend was Ritu Anand. Okay. And she's saying this now about me. I hope you're going to send me just a little bit of the recording where she said what she said about me. I want that on my LinkedIn profile. Zoom, I'm going to put it on LinkedIn. Because one of the most important things as an entrepreneur was trying to market yourself, right? And how many of you know that? Marketing yourself to likely clients, everybody, right? And for us, TCS, of course, is the nation's largest tech company. And so earlier days, I would try to go there and try to say, oh, how many people can we relocate for you? How can we do cross-cultural training? And now I'm like, you have so many women. Can't we be part of your induction program? And so there was this name, Ritu Anand. Everything would lead, all roads led to Ritu Anand. And I would reach out to her. But you know, Mark, I'll tell you a secret. She never responded. So now you've got her captive and you put me on the screen. That's it. Now she has to talk to me. Anyway, I'm giving you a hard time, but that's sort of the truth. I didn't say anything that was untrue. I'm in great awe of the work she does. And I'm in wonderful admiration of the work that WeQual is doing. Outside of work, I'm a daily meditator. I love to do my mindfulness practices. The moment I think one more person has moved the other side and has taken time to slow down or put one-pointed attention as their priority or has started focusing on me and looking after mental well-being, despite being super busy, I feel like I've won the lottery. That's sort of my go-to every time. And outside of work, I'm also a mother of 2 entrepreneurs. So we're a family of 4. So imagine all 4 entrepreneurs at the table. So it was high time for me to step off that treadmill. And that's why I let the for-profit business go and told my daughter to take it over. And any mothers in this group, you're thinking, oh my God, mom guilt, I should be there with my children now. How are they going to manage this? Not only work, I'm even attending an event like this. Please take time for yourself to do that. They become grown up before we know it. And they take over our businesses or they go way past what we have even done. And so that's why I'm happy that I took the time to follow my passion, which is sharing stories. Really, I'm a storyteller. So I'm just so excited to be here with all of you to tell stories about women. Thank you. And there's one in the group. I saw one Umang. Umang, is that you? Yeah. Hello. Oh, you signed in a man's ID, but you're also part of us. Okay, cool. I thought it was the first.
My name is Manian. Yeah.
So I can already tell that it's going to be challenging to keep the time in this session. So Dr. Ritu, or even Ritu, because I already asked if you'd like to be named doctor, and you said no, Ritu. So Ritu, you hate the word diversity. That's where you and I first spoke. So tell us why you hate the word diversity so much. You're on mute.
Number one, I was born and I'm living in a country, hold your breath. It has got 4 castes, 3,000 subcastes, and 25,000 further bifurcation of the various beliefs that people follow in. We already have many religions. Last count was 7. And don't even ask about the languages. 22 official languages, 234 mother tongues. And if you rationalize all this, 1,700 mother tongues in this country. So what I'm talking about in 2023 about diversity, like India, I believe the universe or the world was born diverse, living diverse with diverse perspectives. And why are we all now, for the last 3 decades that I have been following this speak or events or the literature, we are only talking. We seem to be only talking because the needle doesn't seem to have moved, neither in Asia nor in Western world. So I firmly believe talking is not the way forward, and hence talking about diversity is actually ruining the cause of inclusive culture that actually we are looking forward to. we are living in a borderless world, but we are creating borders by creating walls. And when we all know that walls are meaningless, they are not meaningful, and especially in today's times, then what's the point of further isolating a segment of population and making it so prominent in our words and in print, when the whole purpose and objective is to merge with the majority? So we need to really think something absolutely out of the box, that how to be equal despite being equal. And I will explain what I mean. That not forcing everybody to mold, to get into one mold, because there is no mold. There is actually diversity, differences which we are born with. Can we? And that is where, in my experience, the word equity was born. That I want to be fair to each person who was born different. My education in psychology tells me that no two people are same, and so that means we have what, 8-9 billion people who are different. So we have so many billions of personas in this universe. There is no way one mold can fit or encompass each one of them. So we were born diverse, we have different ideas, and what we need to do is to live together, learn to live together. So the word for me, which is emerging, and I am giving you a peek into my thought process, which I haven't put it in print as yet, is multism, multiculturalism. I am absolutely a pro for pluralism and shunning individualistic nature of ourselves. Because when we are individuals, we are seeking information, we are seeking education, we are seeking power. And when we are seekers, we are going to become individualistic. And that is worrying me a lot. So is multism, pluralism is the way forward? The very loud bell that is ringing in my mind tells me yes, it is, because we have to shun melting pot theory and adopt a salad bowl theory. It's not my terminology. I have picked it up from somewhere. And like the words, two words explain, melting pot obviously means that everything different is melting, and a solid mass comes. I'm sorry if anybody gets offended, but a very clear example is America, that different people came in, and the policies are so much that everybody has to be fitting in one mold. Red Indians, or what the different name they were called, but they are almost extinct. They were only recognized when they called themselves Americans. Vis-a-vis salad bowl theory, which India is, with all those number of diversity in their religions, caste, and language that I spoke about, that everybody is encouraged and is living with their own identities. So I am studying these two theories a little more closely, but for now, I would say that diversity in the current form, the way we are speaking and going about it, is not going to change anything. Over to you.
Thank you. So multicism, which is a shortened version almost of multiculturalism, dualism, not going towards a melting pot, but actually more of a salad bowl approach. I think we can all very clearly visualize that. This is going off the narrative that we were originally maybe going down, but I'm fascinated at what that actually looks like within a corporate setting. Because we all have diversity programs. You yourself have run women gender programs or women leadership programs. How does that actually play out in practice? What does that actually look like for you in practice within a corporate setting?
Bach and all other ladies who are listening, one thing which I believe, and I'm sharing with you, what was relevant, needed, let's say X number of years earlier, does not necessarily need to come with me, and I continue to do that. Where I want to reach, that past is not going to be the only ingredient which is going to push me. You are right. The current corporate scenario is exactly what I am not seeing in future. That there are set of programs to be done. There are some policies which government in India is mandating it very beautifully, but execution is horrible. There is no enforcement as yet. So companies are doing what they think they are told to do. We are doing it in spirit. We are not doing it in letter. Sometimes in compliance, corporate India, corporate world goes very deep into what each letter says. But as far as the policies which governments are mandating, we are interpreting because government themselves are not clarifying. So there is a developmental approach to women in leadership or gender diversity that corporates are running, and that will continue for some more time till the future. What I am envisaging is fleshed out by some very progressive institutions. Maybe WeQual could be one of them. So development approach will continue. The initiatives will continue. The very low-hanging policies which costs least will come into practice. And very few company, and the number is not more than 5 to 10% in the whole of corporate world, which will be called progressive, with very progressive from the heart policies. So for example, I remember 5 years ago, we and a couple of other companies were very frontliners in introducing the insurance for same-sex partners, health insurance cover, for health insurance paying for sex reassignment surgery. So these are very progressive policies which will cost a lot. But actually, when I started counting the dollars and rupees, whatever you may want to call it, it doesn't cost me much. But what actually brought in was the goodwill, which was worth millions and billions of dollars. And that is why my first take to all of you who are still in corporates and wanting to do something, think 5 years ahead. Mark?
Thank you. Ranjini, in terms of your experience, I know when we spoke, you came up with 4 really clear aspects that specifically women, from your experience, women could adopt or could leverage to help them achieve and thrive within this corporate environment. One of them was this whole aspect actually of gender blind spots. I'd love to hear you explain what you mean by gender blind spots.
So there was this book written by, when I was in the Harvard board, the chair of our board was a woman called Barbara Annis, and she wrote a book along with John Gray, the guy who did Mars and Venus. And they wrote about the 8 gender blind spots. So the idea or the concept of this comes from them. You can read it, it's fun. And actually, some of it is really easily applicable. And when I give some examples, people are laughing in the audience, which means they're guilty of that blind spot. So according to me, one of the things that I think India has done well in the past and now is taking also some of the studies from the West is unveiling these blind spots. Let's take one example of how do we say thank you to each other? How do we like to be appreciated, women and men? You know, with men, hey, good job, Mark, and give you a high five. You're happy, right? You do try that with a woman, good job, high five, and go away and never talk to her again about how well she did. How many women in our group will be happy? We need a lot more description, a lot more specifics, a lot more emotion in that. So even if you're buying your wife a sari, which men in India do to get brownie points, and I'm sure they're buying you jewelry and Western clothes there, it's not just about what you got me, but how carefully you brought it, you looked into my eyes and you gave it to me. So for me, words and emotions are totally fused in my brain because neurologically, that's how I'm built. Our brain's wires are crisscrossed, and so the two sides speak to each other. So we can't just put words and emotion to the side. As a result, coming to the corporate workforce and to entrepreneurship, which I'm familiar with, when you want to value a woman, you have to actually come out and say it in so many words and repeat or remind her how much you value her. Many times I found in corporates where I used to work to help gender become a little bit more even, because gender balance is gender intelligence, isn't it? When I would go there, they would say many women who are quitting because they have work-life balance issues. But I went and interviewed a few of them. It wasn't that. They were feeling low appreciation. When a woman feels, I'm not being valued, my work is not being valued, you can be sure only then she will start opening up a LinkedIn profile and searching for jobs. If you keep a woman valued and give her the big picture and show her what her role is, what a crucial role she plays in getting to that big picture, we can be super productive and super effective in any team. So that's one gender blind spot. Now, knowing this, you know how you can apply it in an appraisal. When you're doing an appraisal, I think if you said to a man, oh, good, Mark, you've done, let's sit down and have a chat about your appraisal. How are you? Mark, can you answer? How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Your grandmother had broken her leg, right? How is she?
Oh, yes, she's recovering, thank you. Yes.
And the vacation with the children, how was that? You went and came back last week?
Yeah, very restful, very good.
Okay. What do you think Mark is thinking? I'm the boss, I'm appraising you. Okay, and I'm asking you about all these questions. I want you to be honest about what you're thinking, but tell me later. And now I'm doing this for Ritu or anyone else, any volunteer who wants to be the woman in the appraisal. And I'm saying, Rituji, how nice to meet you. I hope that I'll be able to give a really good appraisal, but first I care about this. How is your grandmother? She broke her leg, right? And the holiday? Now here's two different emotions. I'm telling you, there are two different emotions. Mark, what would you feel if your boss started like that?
Well, it very much depends on my relationship with my boss, for starters.
And why? Yeah. And how would you feel if he spoke about all these other things and came to the appraisal much later?
I think that they were potentially wasting time.
Okay, women, you can react to Mark.
Hang on.
And Ritu, you can, of course, tell me, speaking on behalf of so many of us women that go through this. Yeah. My boss cares about me or something, right? Ritu, you go ahead.
Absolutely. He cares about me, and he's helping me become comfortable so that I can be myself and not be bothered about what he wants me to say, but actually I say what I have worked on. And that is the way appraisals should be done, which is not.
Now I would give the high five to Ritu. So Mark, this is how it's seen, but this is a blind spot. Absolutely. You don't know this, you don't know what you don't know. That's the problem. So when you're talking to a man, he thinks, wait a minute, what is this bad news he's going to give me in the appraisal? Why is he wasting my time asking about my grandmother? Whereas the woman is like, because our brains have oxytocin, right? Brain science says this. The oxytocin of the brain helps you to bond and requires you to form relationships. And actually, we women in India, or even men and women in India, we're really good at that part. And I'll talk about that if you have another question for me on relationship building, which is one of the strongest way to keep gender or diversity or team spirits together, is valuing relationships.
Move on to that, because I know a key area was this whole aspect of leveraging relationships as well.
Yeah, so if you talk about relationships, for us in India, for example, relationship is more important than time. So while I'm having this huge meeting, suddenly in my office, I remember my pretty junior but important assistant came up and with an invitation card for her wedding. And what do you do? What would you do? Ritu, what would you do if somebody came from your team, an important person, and came with the invitation card and said, ma'am, I know that you're in a meeting, but just 1 minute, I want to give you a personal invite to my brother's cousin's wedding.
I will hold the whatever I was doing, and I will excuse myself, and I'll hug that person, wish her all the best, and really appreciate that she took time to give me the card personally in her busy time of preparing marriage.
See how that works? Relationships are more important than time. And Ritu and I have never met, so we're talking the same language. Whereas in many other parts of the world, time is more important, right? And it's not that they don't value relationships, but I've had clients from BMW or Amazon or wherever, busy people. And if you go into something that's just a little bit extra, there's no time for that, right? So can we have a second meeting? Please put that on my calendar for next week. You can come give me the invitation next week, you know? So if we could go more the India route, you gave a beautiful title to this WeQual, Mark. You said India's journey and lessons, global lessons. Here is the global lesson. Put relationships first and time later. And say to yourself, it's okay. I'm going to breathe into this moment because only this moment that I'm looking at exists. Anything in the past and anything in the future, it's not real. Real is only this moment. Be in the now and be present. So that's how
I'm going to wear my psychology hat on this. And I must tell you, when I have traveled a bit, not as much as others, but I have traveled a bit, and I feel Western women have put their feminine competencies in the remotest corner of their brain, so that even they cannot open the door. Forget about door. They can't even open the window to let that feminine competency come. Why? Because of the conditioning that they have been brought in, that I have to work, and if I have to work, I have to be like majority, and majority is not relationship oriented, and hence if I have to be successful, I have to wear black, brown, blue suit and gray suit, no other color, figuratively speaking, and that is what it is. But I must tell you, Ranjini, that I experienced very faintly a very familial, very kind, very keen to embrace sentiment in Western people, men and women. And those emotions, those vibrations used to come and immediately go back in a corporate setting or in a social setting also. I wish that was not the case, because neuroscience, like you know better than me, says that relationship building is the crux and the foundation on which your mental health is based on. Sorry to have taken your words out. Mark, over to you.
Very true.
Yeah, I mean, the history of psychology going back, well, more recently, but not even from the 1950s, is that primarily we are social creatures, right? We are social beings. I'd love to pick up on this aspect, though, because one of the common themes that comes up through all of our WeQual Global sessions is this aspect actually of authentic women leadership. What does it mean to be authentic as a woman leader? And what we're highlighting here is the potential difference between India and maybe the West. You're talking about these masculine traits versus feminine traits, right? So the types of behaviors that a woman might engage in and the types of behaviors that a man might engage in. And I don't mean to make that polar. But talk to me a little bit about that aspect. We talked about the gender blind spots a little bit, Ranjini, but in this aspect, both in terms of leveraging relationships, but actually, Ritu, what you were just saying about the corporate world demanding that we, and we're speaking primarily about women, showing up in a very specific way, which historically means probably showing up more like a masculine trait behavior. Talk to me a little bit more about that, Ritu, and then I'll come to you, Ranjini.
That's a fact still, and that fact has not gone away. In India, definitely it has not gone away. While there are pockets of change which I am seeing, but you have to be, I don't know, I don't have a better word, but straight-jacketed, expressionless person to be able to handle different kind of stimuli shooting from all sides. I remember my first interview with Mr. Kohli was, he was a founder of TCS many years ago, 30 years ago. And, he interviewed me and all that. And later on, when I joined the company, he told my boss, not me, he told my boss that she will not succeed to the top because she's very expressive. And my boss, of course, told me, because we got close, and to know, I wanted to know what he said. And I tried desperately, Mark, to be like men, but I could not. And here I am, enjoying myself to the fullest, expressing myself in every situation. But you have to be able, if a woman comes to me for counseling or advice, I will say you have to be expressionless. You have to control your emotions. You cannot giggle too much. You cannot laugh at silly jokes. Nobody should come to know that whom you like and whom you don't like. This is advice I give. And I am playing two roles. This is the paradox that I am living in, which I don't like. But my responsibility today, or my choice today, is that I show the mirror that there are two sides of the mirror, and you choose which side you want to be. And so far, because if you want to be a CEO, you want to be on the ladder of being a CEO, then you have to be like something which sells. Sorry to use that word.
And Ranjini, both following on from that point, maybe you want to add something to that, but also do want to come back to the leveraging relationships part. Oh, you're on mute.
That's why I stopped muting myself.
Yeah, maybe I have to stop. So what is an authentic woman leader? This mute is a good metaphor, because if you count the total number of words that women write, speak and think, we use 50% more words than men. Did you know that? Neuroscience. So as a result, if there's a meeting and there's a lot of talking going on, men whose brains naturally go from one point to the next will zone out. So what will the woman do? She'll talk more because, oh, he looks like he's blank. He doesn't understand me. Have you ever faced this with a significant other, a partner, sitting on a couch? And then you're saying something, you have to pick up my mother, and then I have to go to the bank, and then, we have to get a gift. Next week is Christmas. And he's like, wait, what are we talking exactly? Have you ever heard that? And so as a result, we don't have the mute button. So as a result, what we all have to practice is what they teach at Harvard, right? The first 180. The first 180 is preparing what you're going to say in the first 3 minutes. When you go in there as a woman and you ask for a raise, you're going there to ask for a raise because you think you're just as good as anyone else on the team, including the men, or you're going to ask for that position that has come up, and you are not constrained by your younger children or your joint family as it is in India, but people will think that you can't do it and therefore will give that role to a man. You're going in there, don't go in there and blab. We all blab. I'm just saying this, not me. I mean, it's not me. Science is saying that. So even more than others, and by the way, more than men, we need to write out our first 180 and then go in there with much more clarity. What am I going to say to set the context in the first 3 minutes? Because that will set the tone for the rest of the conversation. So authentic leadership is knowing your own, shall I say, uniqueness. I don't like to call these flaws, challenges, differences. I don't use those words between men and women. I think men are unique in some ways and women are unique in other ways. So playing to your uniqueness is playing to your strengths. Knowing that your uniqueness has an example of more wordiness, you take the time to restrict it. And after you say something, you press the pause button.
Thank you. And that's definitely a common theme. Talk to me a little bit, just briefly, on the leveraging relationships piece again, because what we spoke about earlier was that Indian women are very good at building relationships, but not necessarily leveraging them. And I think that has global application.
Again, another mentor of mine I have the fortune of knowing is Marshall Goldsmith, the #1 business coach of America, right? The guy who wrote What Got You Here Won't Get You There. His next book, which is How Women Rise, has one of these points where he says, we women have an opportunity to network. We do network now. Earlier they'd say women don't network and men do all the networking. Maybe that's still true to a certain extent, but women are going out of the way to network within their peers, within their company, but also inter-company and so on. But the piece where we have a problem is leveraging that network. And why don't we do it? Some of you should write on chat. I would love to hear from you. You have a network. You know the who's who of everything. but you don't ask for that one favor that you would easily be able to get ahead in life if you asked. What stops us from asking among our network? Can you write what do you think asks us? Uncomfortable to ask, okay? What is the real reason? Yeah, uncomfortable. What else? It could be misconstrued. That's why she made friends with me in the beginning, that Julia, she offered me that glass of wine because she wanted to ask me this, right? What else? Used to do things on our own. Exactly. You are used to do things on your own. Seeking support is hard for us, right? Okay. Who loses out though? People could think we're asking, we're taking advantage. Yeah. So why do you think we network then? Fear. Fear is the number one factor. What will he think? FOPO, fear of other people's opinion. FOPO stops us. You're absolutely right. Fear of rejection. What if he says he can't do it? Big deal. All he can say is he can't do it, right? All those reasons. See, you're giving all the answers yourself. And rejection. What is rejection? They're not going to chop your head off. All they're going to say is, not in my capacity. You don't deserve it yet. Whatever, right? So being prepared to go in there in leveraging a relationship, you have to be prepared to take no as an answer, which I always have been. I've gone in and asked Marshall Goldsmith, I want to do one of your courses, but I don't have $25,000 to do this program. You know what? He let me in for free. So he didn't think, who's this Indian woman coming and asking me for this? So the chances are high that they think people are good. People are generally good. And when you want something, here's my big tip. Ask for advice. Ask for advice. Say, how do you think I could do this? I really wanted to pick your brains on that. Most human beings love to ask for advice, love to give advice. You know that? So when you ask for advice, I would ask for advice. I would get advice and money into my business. So I'm just saying, be authentic, of course. What you're asking is because you want to advance your career, it's all right. You're authentic and open and transparent about it. But picking your network to leverage it is the key. Who else are you going to go to get ahead in life, right? And I think Indian women have become much better. At least the 500,000 we worked with a champion woman, way better now at asking. And saying it's okay if I get a yes or a no. And if it's a no, they don't walk away. They work on self-growth and they see how to get to the yes.
One other reason which in my experience has come up is why women don't ask more than men. Of course, men also sometimes don't ask. It's just a proportion. Is a misplaced ego. That why should I ask? I am the best. If I'm good enough, I will be offered. That is the silliest statement I've ever heard. But of course, I also went through the whole thing when I was growing up. I won't ask. If my boss thinks that I'm good enough, I'll get promotion, that kind of a thing. But the moment you started asking, you started getting.
Yes. Yes.
I'm going to open it up for questions now because time is flying along. So if you've got a question, if you could type it into the chat and then we can hear Ranjini's and Ritu's wisdom.
So while they are writing the questions, if any, I also want to quickly tell those who want to know the 4-point model that you referred to
Yes.
when we were talking about. Very simple. The proof and the beauty was in the execution. The representation piece, that get more in, identify minorities and underrepresented. So representation. I call it read pillars. So enable people to learn, enable people to be aware, enable people to understand that how things get done. Access, give them access. That access to leadership, access to friends, access to mentors, access to training, access to policies, access to everything. External forums were very important. And last but not the least, which I adopted, was a developmental approach. In 2010-11, we started that program, which you talked about in my introduction, Mark. And it is still continuing. And we have an alumni now of thousands of women in TCS and out now. Many have left also. Only 5% of them have left, but they are in larger numbers. So read, representation, enable, access, and develop was one of the models that could work in an organization.
Fantastic. And what we might do in a follow-up is ask you just for a link to those 4 points, and we can include that in the post-event report, which we'll send out to everybody. Thank you, Ritu. So first question, Sadaf Khan, what are your coolest tips? I'm going to ask you each to answer this, 2 tips each in 15 seconds each. What are your, what are the coolest tips for being your authentic self?
Ranjini?
Give yourself permission to be imperfect.
Hmm.
That's what I have adopted. It's okay. I don't have to be perfect mom, perfect wife, perfect leader, perfect everything. And when you don't know, say, I don't know. I'm going to find out for you. And then go find out and give the answer. So those are the 2. It's okay if you're imperfect.
Yeah, I am me, and I speak my mind, and I do what I feel is right, and nobody can force me to do anything which I don't think is fair. And that's all right.
Thank you. Judith Kahneman from Coca-Cola Hellenic Bottling Company. What are your top 3 learnings in life that you can share with us? I'm going to limit because of time. Your top learning in life from each of you that you can share.
Ritu?
You know, my learning is my regret also. Think big when you are not so big yourself. I can explain, but I don't want to right now. But that is one thing. Second, just say and ask. Say and ask what is in your mind. Just throw it out. The only filter you have to have is, or I had to have, was that look at the audience and apply that filter in which language and how you have to ask or say your mind. So that is the second one. And third one, which probably is, I still am not over it, is don't overthink to be perfect. Like Ranjini said previously, it's okay to be 90% or 80% good. I wasted too much of time in trying to reach perfection.
Ranjini?
Mine is a demonstration. Don't try to be a superwoman. Ring. I'm superwoman. I can do it all. You don't need to. Remove the stupid mask you put on yourself. You look just as good in your own skin. And what do? You learn to juggle all the balls you're juggling. Throw one. Let somebody else catch it. If they're only 80% of you, it's okay. Throw one. Kick one out the window because it's a time guzzler and it's not going to work. And drop a third for the time being. When you throw, kick, and drop 3 priorities that you thought were, priorities for life, you will actually end up doing what you do very well. And in my own life, I had to give up this craze for studying more and more foreign languages and just go and serve the world in intercultural work. So I hope that you can all be like that. Just remember this funny lady in India with a mask who said, remove your superwoman syndrome.
And Ritu, we've got a few more questions. So Ritu, to you, so Anna Campagna from Heineken. During talent conversations, women often get labeled as emotionally unstable. This is something I also argue a lot, as there is no way to actually measure emotional instability. What does it even mean? Have you encountered this situation in your own journey?
Let's say if I lived 30 years in corporate world, 15 years of it was going through that journey. I used to cry at the drop of the hat. And if I was angry, it will show on my face. I will go red from ears and nose and everything. Michelle, Sandhya probably has seen me in the other half, so they don't know. And you would come to know that I am losing patience with you. And appraisals would never happen because people would, men leaders, I always reported to men, they would not know how to handle this kind of a persona. I worked on myself and stopped crying. Anything you give me today, the tear will not come out of my eyes, even in person or otherwise. So, except of course, when I'm seeing a very sad movie. And so that is I've trained myself on my own auto suggestion, compartmentalizing this thing. It's not that I don't feel, but I don't show in corporate, and that is where the appraisals started becoming very, very professional, short, sometimes very sweet also, because I learned to say no and learn to accept no. Ladies and gentlemen, if you train yourself to say no, which most women are not in that space, we don't know how to say no. Once I trained myself on it, I became quote unquote emotionally stable. But unfortunately, my tag of being very passionate and expressive did not go away even in the last 15 years.
Okay, my
So
next
once
question.
you
Sorry.
have one cigarette, you smoke one cigarette, you are doomed for life. Similarly, if you have been emotionally unstable for 5-10 years, that tag is not going to go away. You have to apply some other tricks to get into a stable environment and stable situation during appraisals.
Ranjini, a question for you. Kapila Pandey says, how can we deal with leaders who have an intrinsic, conscious or unconscious, bias towards women, which hampers growth?
First of all, we have to acknowledge it and deal with it directly with that leader. I had this and I go directly to the person who I think has the bias. And we have to have a conversation and say, I am feeling slighted, marginalized. I am feeling less than productive. I can do more. Can you help me understand why in that meeting I was dissed or I didn't get a chance to talk? So take the problem to the person who you think is giving you that grief. Going to HR and talking is fine. Going to peers is fine. Going to the other leaders is fine. You're not going to solve it that way. And this is for personal and professional. Whoever is the troublemaker, frankly, the troublemaker is your own mind. Only because you're upsettable, you're getting upset. But till you become the Buddha and you become unupsettable, can we take it directly to the person who we think has got this issue? And they're going to deny it, of course. It's all right. Say, maybe I didn't understand this, but let's think about it. Maybe at the next meeting, and you bring that up early in the game and repeatedly. Most human beings will get it.
Thank you. Another quick question from Natalia Galvez. Should we still use the words feminine versus masculine leadership? Isn't this also a diversity concept that works against real inclusion? Ritu?
The big answer is yes. It is actually, we should stop talking about it, because the moment we start talking about feminine, masculine, and unfortunately we have no other way to explain, so we are so far doing it, but we are actually alienating women from men further and further. Corporate India is reeling under this, and I'm very sad to see this, that while on one side government, B20, G20 are all going for diversity, there is very little work which is being done about on inclusion, and culture of inclusion is something which needs to be understood. And today there are more things happening in corporate which are further creating alienation than bringing them together.
Actually, Ritu, you're so wise in what you're saying about multism and plurality. India was built on plurality, pluralism, isn't it? We have used this concept of Ardhanari in India, just for the Western people who don't know this word. It's Ardha Nari, means half woman. They didn't say that this god is half man. Please note, they said half woman. So it's a very famous sculpture through ancient India, 5,000 years in temples, where half the statue in bronze or granite will be a man's shape and the other half will be a woman, and they'll be complementary and they'll be stuck together like that. And the reason that I bring up this word of Ardhanari is that we're only talking about masculine and feminine qualities which are in the human brain. We're not talking about the differences. Again, I'm going back to the word I love, which is uniqueness. So these three of the concepts in Ardhanari is communication is considered feminine in the Sanskrit scriptures. Can you believe that? because we have the power of communication. We can say the right thing or doom the whole thing. So when a man or woman uses effective communication, he has just gone to his feminine side and leveraged it. That's how we look at it. And there are few more words like that, which I won't do in the paucity of time. But Mark, bring us back to do an Indian concept. Ritu and I will talk about Shakti and Ardhanari and educate you all or share with you all.
I think some of us should globalize this Vedantic wisdom into culture of inclusion discussion. Okay.
Tell me where you're going. I'll march right behind you for that.
And actually, so what a beautiful question you asked. It set us thinking, and we owe an answer to many of you a bit later. Give us some time.
It's one of the joys that we have and that I have personally when I meet leaders from India, and I can see the richness that if only more of the West could take a hold of, it could help some of the West's problems. And I'm sure the same is the way around as well, because we all have amazing qualities. Thank you so much to Ritu and Ranjini. It's been an absolute joy, an absolute pleasure to have you. I feel like we've just scratched the surface. We've touched on some topics we would like to explore in far greater depth. There were many more questions that we didn't have time for. I think my key takeaway, and it's something we hear time and time again, is, and it applies equally no matter our gender, but it's specifically context to women, is to not be scared to own your own space, to be your authentic self. Yes, maybe to ensure that we're matching our communication to our audience. So not necessarily crying or being, whatever the term might be, too emotional, but daring to ask for help, leveraging your network, asking for what you want, think about what you want to say in a meeting. I love this gender blindness. I love what you said, Ranjini, as well, about it's not gender equality, it's gender intelligence. I think that's a whole topic there. So thank you everybody so much. We'll end the poll there. Thank you all.